conversation is going round. People talking about the colors come to town. Fresh as a summer breeze, she'll take you by surprise.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Fresh Waves here on Whistle FM. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and our technical producer is Jason Rumball. Our producer behind the scenes is Mr. Ivan Harris, and we're very happy to have him back today. He's back from the sunny south, looking very cheery. It's amazing how a vacation can really help someone along the way. We're having fantastic muffins in the station this morning, brought to you by, or brought to me, because not you, the listener. You don't get to have these muffins unless you go to Reese's Market and Bakery at 5758 Main Street. And thanks to them for supplying the fabulous Morning Glory muffins. Morning Glory. What a nice name. Jason, how are you?
Name. I'm doing very good, Brenda. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. And you like Morning Glory muffins?
I sure do. I like all the Reese's muffins, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of don't have a choice this morning because all I picked up was Morning Glory.
Okay, well, I guess I better enjoy that one.
Mm-hmm. I think you will. It's lovely.
It sure
Just
is.
the best stuff ever. Well, we've got a great show lined up today, speaking of Morning Glory. We have the sunny Dawn Forsyth from Health on Main in the studio this morning. And for those of you who don't know where Health on Main is, it's a health food store that's nestled between the dog food store, the beer store, and the tap house. So there you go. You've got alcohol on both sides with a little bit of doggy love. And then, flowers too. There's
That's
flowers
right.
in that
We
plaza.
do have flowers.
And then there's Dawn's store.
Yes.
And I have heard about your store for years, but for the first time went in last week and I was pleasantly surprised.
Wonderful. I'm
You
happy
will
to
save
hear.
me a gas trip to Newmarket. Yes, indeed. Anyway, tell us a little bit about you, Dawn. It's nice to have you in the studio on this snowy Wednesday.
Well, it's wonderful to be here, and thank you for inviting me, Brenda. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey into healthcare or into health support or natural medicine or natural supplementation. So I really started studying, I would say, in 2006 when my daughter was born. Because there were some challenges with her immune system, and the only way that I was able to really support her was by finding a holistic nutritionist who was recommended to me by a colleague at the time. And so when I took my daughter there, I learned so much from her, and it really made a difference in my ability to support my daughter's health overall and her immune system. She was getting sick quite often, and I just didn't know what to do, and we found out that she had quite a few allergies that was so foreign to me that it was just so difficult to understand why and how to support her and what foods to give her. We couldn't eat out. I couldn't buy any packaged foods for her from the supermarket because everything that I would pick up to read, I would see an ingredient there that she couldn't have. And so it was sort of a time where I said, well, I've got to learn how to cook. And so I really changed my way of living, just the way that I thought about food and nutrition, and that really started my journey of taking care of her properly, making sure that I cooked real food, and just took the time to do that for her and to support her, not only her immune system, but her overall health with natural supplements and herbal remedies and homeopathics to really help her. And what a difference it made. What a complete difference it made in her. So that was where I really started to become interested in understanding how can we support our bodies naturally? Like, what can we do? And so although I spent a lot of time really just looking after her and making her a priority, I really didn't spend a lot of time on me. And so, unfortunately, I think a lot of moms and dads experience that, where they put a lot of effort into taking care of their children, making them a priority, making sure they're fed, and well nourished, but then they sort of take the back burner to that, right? So sometimes run into difficulty as they get older, as we sort of run out of gas, let's say, and we start to break down and we're like, what's going on here? We're still so young, but we have no energy. We're fatigued. We wake up tired. We go to bed tired. And it's just that routine of tiredness day in and day out. And so that was what I was experiencing. And then to add to insult to injury, well, if I can say that, work was very, very challenging. I was a senior manager at a research consulting firm, and that was, very stressful. A lot of difficult decisions were made, and just, heavy workload. And then in 2011, both my parents were diagnosed with cancer at the same time. So it was just as we turned into 2011, and first it was my mom, and a couple weeks later we found out my dad. Now, the difficulty was that my dad was given less than 3 months to live at his diagnosis. So you can imagine just having that amount of stress with work, taking care of a family, your daughter, and then having to sort of experience this trauma. And it was so difficult. And I remember hearing the news and going home and just praying and asking the Lord for more time, because I felt this was just unbelievably difficult. And because I didn't have a good relationship with my dad, I really felt like this was just so unfair. And so after that prayer, I know that the Lord did answer my prayer, because he did live for a year after that, and I was able to take care of him. So I stopped working and I took care of him and my mom with their appointments and their different appointments. And
that's a full-time job.
It is a full-time job, and people, unless you've had that experience, you really don't know how difficult and challenging it is to have parents who are not well and need your help. And just feeling that lack of control. And I remember my parents were both at Sunnybrook for their treatment, and I remember thinking, well, how can I help them? Because they were so weak, they didn't have an appetite, they couldn't sleep, and they were nauseous. It was just, and I was asking, how can we help them? Like, what foods can they eat? What type of nutrition?
That's a tricky thing, let me tell you.
Yeah, and it's like, what type of nutrition can I give them? What should I cook for them? Like, how can I help them not feel so nauseous? Or how can I help them to sleep better? How can I help them to have more energy? And it really was, I think one of the things we were told was to take Ensure.
Oh, I've heard that so often.
And I thought, well, when I did my research, I understood that sugar plays such a huge role in cancer and feeding cancer. I thought, well, why would I give them something that's just going to perpetuate an issue that they're already dealing with? And so that was very baffling to me, and really felt that there was no real help. And so I started to look for help. I visited naturopathic doctors, functional medicine doctors, different alternative doctors, and I learned a lot from each one of them. So everyone brought to the table their own expertise, and that really helped me to start to gain an understanding of the value of natural supplementation, herbal remedies, homeopathics, just overall nutrition, foods to eat, foods to stay away from. And so after my dad passed away, I decided that I had gone through so much, and that experience was so profound for me, that I wanted to do something to help people, because I really didn't want people to have that same experience. And I had learned so much, so I decided to go back to school and changed careers completely. Wow. So I went back to school and studied nutrition, and really understood how the body benefits from nutrition, what vitamins and minerals are in foods, what do we need, right? And I think just the thing that really stuck out to me was not just so much what we're eating or the fact that we need to eat certain foods or things like that, but is how well are we absorbing our nutrients?
Exactly. That's
because
a big issue.
People will say, oh, you are what you eat, but you're really, you're what you absorb or what you can digest.
Exactly.
So we can be eating all the best foods. We can, have the greatest smoothies. We can just, do the best that we can in terms of eating properly. But if we can't break down that food properly or digest that food properly, if we're suffering from gas or bloating or just GERD or acid reflux, flatulence, like all of those things, they will impact our ability to digest.
Absolutely.
And so that is a problem. So
it sure is. We have to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking more about just how to digest your food. The story that brought you to where you are today, Dawn, is fascinating, and I'm sure our listeners are keen to hear more. So we'll be right back right after this quick break.
Thank you.
We're taking strides to make a difference, to show we care. Strides for Change.
In communities across this country, MAD Canada hosts Strides for Change, an annual 5K walkathon and wheelchair event. Help raise awareness to stop impaired driving and raise funds to support the victims of this violent crime. So join the fun. Together, we can make a change.
We're taking strides to make a difference. Strides for Change.
Visit stridesforchange.ca.
Hey everyone, this is Lil J. Join me every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern for The Block Party, a 2-hour journey of the best in the Canadian underground dance music scene, featuring tracks and DJ mixes from Canada's emerging artists, from the disco hits of the 70s to the latest dance floor fillers. No lineups or cover charges, it's your weekly free access to the beats that are packing dance floors in Canada and around the world. The Block Party, Saturday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, right here on 102.9 Whistle FM and online at whistleradio.ca.
And we are back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We are speaking with Dawn Forsyth of Health on Main here in Stouffville. She is, are you a nutritionist?
I am, yes.
A holistic nutritionist? Or
I am. So I am a holistic nutritionist. My designation is Registered Nutritional Consultant Practitioner, as well as Registered Orthomolecular Health Practitioner. And I'm also a certified life coach as well.
Oh, those are a good combination.
Yeah, I find it very, very helpful for my clients that I see in my practice to be able to walk them through that journey. Mm-hmm. Because so much of our health is also based on our emotions. And sometimes people forget that connection between their emotions and how it impacts your health.
Right.
So when we are depressed, when we are anxious, all of those experiences makes it very difficult to digest your food.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
When you're worried, can you eat? No. Right? Can you go to the bathroom? No. Mm-hmm. Or if you do go to the bathroom, everything's coming out. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's very difficult to absorb our nutrients if we don't know what we need to change and how to change those things. Mm-hmm. So one of the benefits of probiotics is that it really helps to stabilize our gut flora. And because we have so many different bacterias and viruses and all of those things, fungus, yeast, in our bodies, they live very well as long as they're in balance. Like everyone gets along really well unless things get out of balance. And one of the things that really shifts the terrain or makes it go out of balance is not only stress, but prescription medications like antibiotics, So if
or
you've
medical
ever...
procedures.
Right.
I mean, I remember the first time the only time I've had a colonoscopy, you get to that age and they say, time for you to go. Mm-hmm. And it took me months to recover from that one test because of the drugs that they give you to flush out your system and everything. And it wiped me out. Right. As far as I'm concerned, I'm never doing it again. Now, that's just me. I'm not advocating that for others.
We are not
doctors.
Just
saying I am never doing that again. The consequences were vast.
Yeah.
And the same with an antibiotic. You go on an antibiotic for 7 days, and you're paying for it. Some people say for a year.
Right.
Up to a year.
And it takes, sometimes it takes 6 months to a year to rebalance that gut flora and to put back in the good bacteria into your gut. So if you've ever been on an antibiotic or had a medical procedure done, if you've taken prescription medications, if you've been on birth control, all of those things influence your gut bacteria.
Yeah.
And I really recommend strongly that women as well as men really consider taking a probiotic daily. Probiotics are being studied now, and we're seeing such value in what they bring for us in terms of our health, overall well-being. We know that, our serotonin levels, most of our serotonin is made in our gut,
yes.
right? And that's connected directly to our brain. So if we're not supporting our gut health, it's going to influence how we feel, whether, we experience bouts of depression or anxiety, different things like that people experience. There is a direct connection between your gut health and your brain health.
Yeah.
So I think those are things that are really important. Probiotics is one of my key nutrients that I suggest that people get daily.
Yeah.
And there are different ways to do that. But
of course, there's different ways. And we also have to clarify that if you are currently taking antibiotics, you may want to stagger your probiotics.
Correct.
So that you're not taking them at the same time.
Exactly.
They can kind of counterbalance each other.
Right.
And in the world right now where antibiotics, there's a lot of bad press about antibiotics. Antibiotics save lives. There is no doubt about that. If your doctor has told you to take antibiotics, by all means do so. We're not medical doctors here, and we're not suggesting anything against the medical community.
Right.
But it's good to know that you need to balance things out.
Right.
So a probiotic is great, but you can talk to your doctor if they're... Some doctors don't like the holistic route and they're not going to talk to you about it. Others, with their 1 month of knowledge that they get on nutrition, they don't have really the knowledge to suggest which probiotics and stuff. And of course, a health care practitioner like you can easily suggest things.
Yeah, and I find that a lot of doctors now, more and more of my clients are coming in and saying, my doctor sent me over here to get a probiotic.
Yep. Some of them are very progressive, aren't they?
Yeah, what do I need? And I spend a lot of time with our customers and our clients that come into Health on Main asking questions, because I feel that understanding our clients and customers and really knowing that everyone has their own unique biochemical makeup. So everyone is unique. And asking questions and getting an understanding of who they are, their struggles, what it is that they're experiencing, what meds they might be taking, it really is helpful when we make a suggestion or a recommendation for them, because then we have a little bit of insight into what's going on. Now, I always recommend for really... if you want a full sort of support and really getting deep down into what may be causing issues for you, is to book an appointment, because that way I can sit down with you and really get to understand your medical history, your health history, what medications you may be taking, what supplements you're taking, and then I scan the body, and it's a procedure that I use that is not invasive at all, and it's actually quite unique in that it gives you a lot of information, and it's a real good education. I'm really big about education. I think that we all should be educated a little bit more about nutrition, especially in our schools, which I think people need to learn at a young age.
Yeah,
what is food and how important it is, and what is the right food for you. And they say that one man's poison is there's a saying, I can't remember. One man's food is another man's poison. And so when we look at it like that, it's not all foods are good. If they're whole foods, they're all good, but they may not be good for you at this point, depending on what's going on in your life and what you're experiencing with your gut health. So those are conversations that we like to have, or at least I like to have with my customers and clients to really support them. And help them to get results.
I was really surprised. We were at Markham Stouffville Hospital last week, my mom and I, and when they were asking my mom about her medications, the pharmacist also asked her which homeopathic she was taking and which supplement she was taking. And that's a new question.
Right.
We haven't heard that before. It's been a few years since she's been in the hospital, but it's nice to see that coming into play. I think pharmacists, with their 7 years as a minimum of studies and knowing how drugs interact with each other, they're now having to take this into consideration because people are doing natural supplements and people are taking more care of themselves. And I agree with you. It's all about education. And that's what we're doing here this morning on Fresh Waves. We're giving you some interesting information. We hope that you take this information and consult a healthcare practitioner, whether it's a holistic one or mainstream, whatever you feel more comfortable with. And you know what? Why don't you give it a try and try both? Because I think that that's probably the key these days.
Well, I think everything, what happens is too, is like once you start supporting your health, you may find that your need for particular prescription medication goes down. And because there's such adverse side effects with prescription meds in general, it's nice if you can go to your doctor and he can do follow-up visits with you and to check to see how well you're doing, because ultimately you really want to make sure that you're not taking unnecessary prescription meds.
Right. Or unnecessary holistic meds. Either one is just something
you you just want to make sure that you're doing what is right for you and supporting your body the way that you need to.
Yeah, that's all good information. Well, I'm your host, Bren Masson. We're on Fresh Waves here with Dawn Forsyth from Health on Main, and we'll be back right after these few messages. Rented Lips Take 2. You're listening to Fresh Waves on Whistle FM.